Class, I'd like to take a moment to explain our first essay assignment, essay number one. So, what you see on the screen here are the three options that you can choose from for your essay. Now, you only want to write on one of them. Please don't write about all of them. Choose just one. So you have a choice out of those three. And then down here we have a little rubric that'll show you how your essay is going to be graded. And so I'm giving a lot of points for the argument, for your ability to analyze a text and form an argument, and examples. That demonstrates your close knowledge of the text. So that grade has to do with how many specific references you can make to the text that you're discussing. And then organization is also important. That's your ability to organize your essay into paragraphs. And then mechanics, meaning your ability to use proper standard English. So I'm going to go into each of these essay questions and provide a brief outline to follow on how to answer this question. And so let's look at our first question. Number one, the Epic of Sunjata is written down and translated into English only very recently. Yet it has existed for thousands of years in oral format. In light of this history, what do you think is the role of oral literary traditions? Why should we not overlook oral literature? How do they contribute to the evolution of human history? Please refer to the Epic of Sunjata, but also include cross references to other oral works like the Bible, Quran, and Analects. So, I have a brief outline down here, and this is how I would approach the essay. Remember, you need an introduction paragraph. It can be brief, it doesn't have to be very long, but you need an introduction paragraph that provides background on Sunjata and the oral tradition, as well as a thesis statement about the importance of oral traditions. And then in the body of the paper, I would include two paragraphs. I would have one paragraph that focuses on what the story of Sunjata shows us about oral traditions. And then in the second body paragraph, I would go into the other work from an oral tradition. So choose either one, like the Bible, the Quran, or Analects, and describe how that text is part of an oral tradition as well, and also what makes that text important in the study of world literature. So then you want to conclude this essay with some perspective on how world literature is improved by including oral literature in our study. So that would be number one. You may also choose to write about option number two. Option number two says, analyze the character of Sogolon Wulan Konde. Through her story and experiences, what do we learn about the role and status of women in her culture? Overall, how does this epic give us tons of information about women's conditions in mid 13th century West Africa? How does her character compare with other female figures we have encountered, like Jocasta or Mary? What similarities do you see between Sogolon Wulan Konde and another female figure from our readings, either Jocasta, the wife of Oedipus, or Mary, the mother of Jesus? So, for this question, I would also use a four paragraph structure. I would have an introduction paragraph that provides background on Sunjata and introduces the figure of Sogolon Wulan Konde, the mother of Sunjata. There, I would have the thesis statement say something about how about what Sogolon shows us about women in this particular West African society. And then in the body of the essay, I would use two paragraphs. I would have one paragraph that goes into what information does this epic give us about women in this society. So looking at Sogolon Wulan Konde's story, what can we say is a woman's role in that society, and what is it like to be a woman in that society? And then body paragraph number two, how does Sogolon compare to other female figures we encountered in our readings? So this is where you want to bring in either Jocasta or Mary and talk about some important differences that we see between those characters and how they might also show us what it's like to be a woman in their respective societies. And then in the conclusion, you want to think of, I think, some perspective about what we can learn from looking at the representation of women. We can learn a lot about a society's values and morals by looking at how they represent women and their gender roles. So that is how I would approach essay number 2. Then moving on, we have our third option, essay option number 3. And for number 3, it reads, in what ways is Sunjata a hero? What obstacles does he overcome? What skills does he have that make him stronger or more skilled than his opponents? Another heroic figure we read about is the tragic hero of Oedipus the King in Sophocles' play. What are some important similarities and differences between Oedipus and Sunjata? So, the way that I would structure this essay is also in 4 paragraphs. I would have an introduction with some background on Sunjata and the role of the epic hero. A thesis statement here would focus on the qualities of Sunjata that make him heroic. And then, body paragraph number 1, I'd go into details about what is heroic about Sunjata. I'd use specific examples from the text, like you should do in all of them, to show how he is heroic. And then in body paragraph number 2, I would focus on a comparison. Compare Sunjata with Oedipus. How are they both heroic? And then what are the important differences between them? Because there are some very important differences. Oedipus experiences a reversal of fortune, and at the end of the story, he is defeated and exiled. Sunjata's fortune is much different. Sunjata is successful in many of his enterprises. So, how do those two compare? What are the important differences between them? And then the conclusion would focus on the importance of the epic hero and how Sunjata fills that role. So, again, remember when you're writing your essay, in the body of your essay, use specific references to the text. Now, I say to do so here under body paragraph number 1 when you're talking about what makes Sunjata heroic, but for all of the other ones as well, you want to use specific references to the text. So, what for essay option number 2, what information does this epic give us about women in this society? Use specific details and examples from Sunjata to support that. Use specific examples from either Oedipus or the birth of Jesus to compare these female figures with Sogolon and Condé. Okay? And so that is all I have to say there. Remember to focus on using a good organization in your essay. Follow the instructions that I've given and make sure that you address all of the individual questions in the essay prompt. And I look forward to reading them. Please remember you can email me if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to give you some feedback.